Hello, and thanks for tuning in to Direct Connection. I'm Yolanda Vazquez. We have a live phone bank of college financial aid advisors waiting to take your calls and answer your questions. But House Speaker Michael Bush pointed out one indisputable fact, that Maryland has lost its prominence in the public education realm. Delegate Morales says there would be no impact. Law enforcement officials can still go after an undocumented immigrant if they have probable cause. While the use of chlorpyrifos among Maryland farmers is minimal and only used when these peach tree branches you see right here are dormant, you are the longest serving Senate president in the country, a fact that I'm sure you're aware of. But that sort of undeniably can put a target on your back. I'm sure you've heard all of the discussions. Well, I mean, you know, the discussions where you receive criticism where folks are saying certain things. So what say you to folks who might say that Miller's time might be up?
If you take care of your people, the people will take care of you.
The Legislative Black Caucus, the Latino Caucus, they say they're not in favor of this bill right now. But interestingly enough, Baltimore City Mayor Catherine Pugh supports this legislation. She says that she welcomes the additional resources and says also that it will strengthen the hand of justice in dealing with repeat violent offenders. The bill now heads to the governor's office for his signature. Proponents say it's highly unlikely he will veto it. Once enacted into law, it will take effect in 2019. Tell us a little bit more about your upbringing. You were born in Sri Lanka and then raised here in Baltimore City, and proud of it, I might say.
So I was 9 months old when my parents led a civil war and came to America and Maryland.
This 50,000 square foot space featuring close to a dozen food vendors is the latest food hall craze to hit Baltimore. Our house is hoping to become your house as they wow foodies to take in some of their culinary delights. A remix of old and new. I'm Yolanda Vazquez. We'll tell you more about a long-standing Bethesda business coming up later on in the show. Jeff, here in the U.S., fried chicken wings are about as American as baseball and apple pie, but you haven't had fried chicken until you tried Korean fried chicken. That's right, Bonchon is making a name for itself. It's too good enough for you? All right, let's try one more. Woo! Oh my goodness. All right, thanks a lot, Joe. Back to you, Jeff. Seriously, I'm done. Hello, Diane. Thank you so much for joining us for our show this evening. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Absolutely delighted to do it. And by the way, retirement is not a word I use.
I know, and we're going to get into that in a second because you are still so busy these days. But the first question I want to ask you has to do with your career. When you started volunteering at WAMU in 1973, had you any idea that your career would blossom the way that it did?
Of course not.
Let's talk a little bit more about moving up the ranks in the industry, because one of the things that I found so fascinating was you were a former housewife with no formal college degree, no radio experience, and yet you ended up hosting a nationally syndicated radio show that was listened to by nearly 3 million listeners a week. That is astonishing.
So what shall I say? I worked very hard.
The impact of U.S. trade wars on your wallet, and how to spend the night in a historic home. Now, for all of us at MPT, I'm Yolanda Vazquez. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful Monday night.
He comes over, he puts his hand on my back, he keeps it there for a while, slides it all the way down, and does indeed, as I said, graze my butt.
Senator Cheryl Kagan describes in detail her interaction with lobbyist Gil Jen, where she alleges he touched her inappropriately at Castle Bay Irish Pub earlier this month.
I shifted my body a little bit, and I gave my former chief of staff a kind of bug-eyed, like, oh dear God, make this stop, make him go away look.
Kagan says the security camera video offers undeniable proof of the type of behavior that is too often silenced in Annapolis.
If he could touch me in that way, imagine what he has been doing for years to interns, junior staff, and yes, legislators.
Jen immediately fired back, saying in a statement that with the release of this video, it is now beyond dispute that I did not grab or grope her. He admits putting his arm in the middle of her back, but says he did not touch her tush. The he said, she said story comes at a time when Maryland lawmakers are working to address sexual harassment complaints. House Bill 1342 would, among other things, require the State Ethics Commission to investigate complaints and hold individuals found guilty accountable.
I've experienced sexual harassment here, as have many of my colleagues. More importantly, the staff here, the lobbyists that we work with, the interns here have been communicating about this with the Women's Caucus for the last 2 years.
Her complaint now rests with the head of HR, but the case can go in many different directions, as there really is no legislative roadmap to follow.
Our current laws don't cover incidents like this.
And as the court of public opinion weighs in on whether Jen's touch was a tad too much, Kagan closes her press conference with one simple request.
I am hopeful that before too long, the hashtag #MeToo will no longer be needed in Annapolis or anywhere else.
I rise today to be the voice for children who are currently subjected to conversion therapy.
Delegate Megan Simon-Air read from her prepared written statement the reasons why she would vote in favor of Senate Bill 1028.
Conversion therapy is so tragic a practice that minors have taken their own lives after being subjected to it.
The demure delegate started to gain the attention of legislators by sharing a story in the third person.
I want to tell you about a girl who grew up in the best family she could imagine.
Little did anyone realize Simon-Air was recounting her life story and the struggles she faced trying to accept her sexual orientation.
She wondered what her family would do if she were true to herself. She finally told her family about the relationship. Her worst fears came true. Her parents were heartbroken and disgusted by her devious actions.
Simon-Air says she never had to endure conversion therapy and hopes her testimony will do the same for others.
If this bill keeps even one child from that, it will be worth sharing my story with you today.
Delegate Bonnie Cullison, who sponsored the House bill to ban conversion therapy for minors, says Simon-Air is one brave woman.
For those of us who are gay and lesbian, that moment of coming out to people is, no matter how old you are, is always tricky. For her to do that in a room of almost 140 people was something that I will always be proud of and inspired by.
Going public with her story put Delegate Simon-Air at odds with her father, Senator Brian Simon-Air. Yes, he's in the legislature too. The Republican from Pasadena voted against banning conversion therapy and felt he needed to set the record straight too. In a personal column to Capital Gazette, Senator Simon-Air says he voted against the poorly drafted legislation for several reasons, offering counseling and support when his daughter recently revealed her bisexual preferences.
What is not broken cannot be fixed. I repeat, what is not broken cannot be fixed.
What this does is it affirms our LGBTQ youth and says to them, you know, we value you, we support you, and we're going to protect you under the law.
In Annapolis, I'm Yolanda Vazquez for State Circle.